The Barabar Hill Caves are the oldest surviving rock-cut caves in India, dating from the Maurya Empire, 322–185 BCE, some with Ashokan inscriptions, located in the Makdumpur region of Jehanabad district, Bihar, India, 24 km north of Gaya. These caves are situated in the twin hills of Barabar, 4 caves, and Nagarjuni, 3 caves. Caves of the 1.6 km distant Nagarjuni hill are sometimes singled out as the Nagarjuni caves. These rock-cut chambers bear dedicatory inscriptions in the name of King Paya Desai for the Barabar group, and Devanampiya Dasarata for the Nagarjuni group, thought to date back to the 3rd century BCE during the Maurya period, and to correspond respectively to Ashoka, reigned 273–232 BCE, and his grandson, Dasarata Maurya. The sculptured surround to the entrance to the Lomas Rishi cave is the earliest survival of the OG-shaped Kshetra arch or Chandrashala that was to be an important feature of Indian rock-cut architecture and sculptural decoration for centuries. The form was clearly a reproduction in stone of buildings in wood and other plant materials. The caves were used by ascetics from the Ajivaka sect, founded by Makkhali Gosala, a contemporary of Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, and of Mahavira, the last and 24th Tirthankara of Jainism. The Ajivakas had many similarities with Buddhism as well as Jainism. Also present at the site are several rock-cut Buddhist and Hindu sculptures and inscriptions from later periods. Most caves at Barabar consist of 2 chambers, carved entirely out of granite, with a highly polished internal surface, the Mauryan polish also found on sculptures, and exciting echo effects. The caves were featured located in a fictitious Marabar in the book A Passage to India by English author E. M. Forster. These were also shown in the book The Mahabharata Secret by Indian author Christopher C. Doyle. Barabar Hill contains 4 caves: Karan Chopar, Lomas Rishi, Sudama, and Visvakarma. Sudama and Lomas Rishi are the earliest examples of rock-cut architecture in India, with architectural detailing made in the Mauryan period. Similar examples include the larger Buddhist chaitya, found in Maharashtra, such as in Ajanta and Karla caves. The Barabar caves greatly influenced the tradition of rock-cut architecture in the Indian subcontinent. Lomas Rishi cave has an arch-like shaped facade that imitates contemporary timber architecture. On the doorway, a row of elephants proceed towards stupa emblems, along the curved architrave. Sudama cave was dedicated by Mauryan Emperor Ashoka in 261 BCE. The arches of Sudama cave have bow shape. The caves consist of a circular vaulted chamber with a rectangular mandapa. Karan Chopar, Karna Chopar, consists of single rectangular room with polished surfaces, contains inscription which could be dated to 245 BCE. Vyavakarma cave, reachable by Ashoka steps hewn in the cliff, consists of 2 rectangular rooms. The cave of Lomas Rishi is probably the most famous of the caves of Barabar, because of its beautifully carved door. It is on the southern side of Barabar Granite Hill, and is adjacent to Sudama Cave, which is on the left. Lomas Rishi consists of 2 rooms, a rectangular room measuring 9.86 x 5.18 meter, and a circular, semi-hemispherical room 5 metre in diameter, which is accessed from the rectangular room by a narrow rectangular passage. This cave has an arched facade that probably imitates contemporary wooden architecture. On the periphery of the door, along the curve of the architrave, a line of elephants advances in the direction of stupa emblems. This is the characteristic form of the Cheetah Arch or Chandrashala, to be an important feature of architecture and sculpture in the rock for many centuries. It is clearly a stone reproduction of wooden buildings and other plant materials. According to Gupta, Lomas Rishi's immediate successors are the Kandavite and Guntupalli caves. Lomas Rishi has no Ashoka inscription, perhaps because it has never been completed due to structural rock slide problems. It is generally considered, however, that it was also created around 260 BCE, like the other caves. Because of the similarity of the internal structure and the degree of finish of the rock, the walls being perfectly polished, with the exception of the vault whose digging was interrupted. It has a much later inscription of Anantavarman above the entrance, from the 5th century CE. According to Gupta, the theory that Lomas Rishi would not have received Ashoka's inscription because it was in a state of incompleteness, is undermined by the fact that the cave of Vivaskarma, another cave of Barabar, although it is not finished, was nevertheless consecrated by Ashoka. The consecration of a cave could therefore be done in the course of work. This could induce that Lomas Rishi, with its bas-reliefs, is actually posterior to Ashoka. Gupta actually believes that Lomas Rishi is posterior to both Ashoka and his grandson Dasaratha, and would have been built at the end of the Maurya Empire, under the reign of his last emperor Brihadratha, and abruptly halted in 185 BC with the assassination of Brihadratha and the coup d'état of Pushyamitra Sunga, founder of the Sunga dynasty. Pushyamitra Sunga is also known to have persecuted Buddhists and Ajivikas, which would explain the immediate cessation of work. 7. According to Gupta, the abrupt interruption of the works is suggested by the lack of finishing, even approximate, of the ground. With for example the abandonment in the state of some pikes of the rocks which would have required only a few minutes of chipping to be removed in order to obtain a fairly regular floor. Ashoka dedicated the caves of Sudama and Visvakarma to the ascetics called Ajivikas in the 12th year of his reign, when his religious evolution towards Buddhism was not yet fully completed. The precise identity of the Ajivikas is not well known, and it is even unclear if they were a divergent sect of the Buddhists or the Jains. Later, Ashoka built the caves of Lomas Rishi, without dated inscription, but posterior to Sudama on architectural grounds, and Karnashopar, 19th year of his reign, at a time when he had become a firm advocate of Buddhism, as known from the edicts of Ashoka. It was initially thought that Karnashopar may have been dedicated to the Buddhists, based on a former reading of the inscription at the entrance of the cave, corrected by Harry Falk in 2007. The new reading shows that Karnashopar too had been dedicated to the Ajivikas. Since Lomas Rishi has no dedicatory inscription, it has been suggested that it may have been dedicated to the Buddhists. The affiliation of Lomas Rishi to Buddhism, although unproven, would be coherent with the fact that the architecture of the Gate of Lomas Rishi became a reference for the development of the Cheetah Arch in Buddhist cave architecture for the following centuries. Whereas the Hindus or the Jains caves essentially did not follow this architectural example. This would also mean that the decorated Gate of Lomas Rishi was a Buddhist invention, which was emulated in Buddhist architecture in the following centuries. 15. After the Barabar caves, the earliest known rock-cut Buddhist monasteries date to the 1st century BCE in the Western Ghats in western India, such as the Nasik caves. The Sudama cave is located on the southern side of Barabar Granite Hill. It is close to Lomas Rishi, and on its left. It consists of 2 rooms, a rectangular room measuring 9.98 x 5.94 meter and a semi-hemispherical room 6 meter in diameter, which is accessed from the rectangular room by a narrow rectangular passage. This is probably the first cave in the group to have been dug. This cave was dedicated by Emperor Ashoka in 257 BCE, 12th year of his reign, as evidenced by an inscription in Brahmi using his protocol name, Priyadarsan, he who brings joy, found in the entrance of the cave, whereas the cave of Lomas Rishi did not receive a dedicatory inscription. The ceiling of the Sudama cave is arched. The cave is composed of a circular vaulted chamber and a vaulted room with the rectangular form of mandapa. The interior walls of the cave represent a technical feat, They are perfectly flat and polished granite surfaces, creating a mirror effect. On the other hand, the plain surfaces reverberate the sound, creating a very pronounced echo phenomenon. This characteristic is common to all the caves of Barabar, and, by amplifying the vibrations and the harmonies, seems to be favorable to the songs of the monks. All of Barabar's caves share this interior polished appearance to a greater or lesser extent, with the exception of Lomas Rishi Cave, which, although designed on the same model, is only half finished for its interior. Karan Chopar, also known as Karna Chopar, is on the northern side of the Barabar granite hill. It consists of a single rectangular room with polished surfaces, 10.2 x 4.27 meter in dimensions. It contains an inscription of Ashoka dating from the 19th year of his reign, about 250 BCE, located outside, immediately to the right of the entrance. Initially, it was thought from E. Holtzsch's 1925 translation, that Ashoka's inscription from Karna Chopar cave does not mention the Ajivikas, and seems rather to refer to the Buddhist practice of retirement, Vasavasa, during the rainy season. In addition, the inverted swastika with upward arrow at the end of the inscription would be more of a Buddhist character. All this suggested that this cave was planned for Buddhist monks. However, Harry Falk has recently shown with a new reading that the cave was indeed dedicated to the Ajivikas. The Visvakarma cave, also called Viswamitra, is accessible by the steps of Ashoka carved into the cliff. It is 100 meters and a little east of the main granite hill 25°0022 and 85°0353. It consists of a rectangular room entirely open to the outside, a sort of elongated porch, and an unfinished semi-hemispherical room. The rectangular space measures 4.27 x 2.54 m and the circular room is 2.8 meter in diameter. One goes from the rectangular room to the half-hemispherical room by a narrow trapezoidal passage. On the floor of the porch, 4 holes were made, which are thought to allow the cave to be closed with a wooden picket fence. The cave of Visvakarma was offered by Ashoka to the Ajivikas in the year 12 of his reign, about 261 BCE. By King Priyadarsan, in the 12th year of his reign, this cave of Kaladaka mountain was offered to the Ajivikas. Visvakarma cave, despite the fact that it is not finished, was nonetheless consecrated by Ashoka. This somewhat questions the theory that Lomas Rishi's cave would not have received Ashoka's inscription because it was in a state of incompletion. This could justify that Lomas Rishi, with his bas-reliefs, is actually posterior to Ashoka, as late as 185 BCE. This does not explain, however, why Visvakarma, consecrated in 260 BCE, has been interrupted, in the absence of a significant problem in the rock, whereas 7 years later Ashoka dedicated Karan Chopar cave, perfectly finished, a short distance from there. Visvakarma is also the only cave that does not have historical inscriptions after Ashoka.